It's my pleasure to chair the second session, which is called Breaking New Ground, and our fourth presenter this morning is Emily Norton. Emily is Head of Rural Research at Savills and recently appointed Director of the Oxford Farming Conference for 2021 to 2023. She's a partner in her family's mixed dairy and arable farm in Norfolk, and following a stint working as an agricultural policy advisor to a UKIP MEP prior to the Brexit referendum, Emily chose to study global best practice in agricultural policy design, and her report is kindly sponsored by the Royal Norfolk Agricultural Association. So please welcome Emily.
Your Royal Highness, Lords, Ladies and Gentlemen, I feel like my life should come with an apology, so I will start with an apology. No PowerPoint presentation, this is my talk, it's a mind map. I started out on my journey thinking about agricultural policy design because I grew up in a mixed dairy and arable business in Norfolk, and I was increasingly frustrated by how the rules around our business seemed to be inhibiting our ability to make progress. So when I had a sort of quiet word with my father about retirement, our accountants up there through his teeth and said, he's not allowed to retire. Inheritance tax means we can't progress things. As a dairy producer, we were increasingly frustrated at how milk contracts and the rules around contracts didn't allow us to have a better negotiating position. And it's immensely frustrating as a small business operator to see these kind of sort of very micro level things impacting on our ability to make progress. But then, all of the time, I was filling in the forms back at home to apply for money coming out of Brussels. And this money, this pot of money all the time is being talked about and how we were allocating that money coming into the industry. And there seems to be this enormous disconnect between what Brussels were trying to do in giving us money and the conditions that are attached to it, and the reality of operating a farm business and the different, particularly if you're consumer focused, the different challenges that you've got looking at the world around you. So, I confess, this is one of my apologies, I took a job working for UKIP. And at the time, in 2014, I thought they were the only intellectually interesting political party to be working for from an agricultural policy perspective, because everybody else believed that the Common Agricultural Policy was a good thing. And they were starting from a blank piece of paper, which if you're going to think about things, starting from a blank piece of paper is really important. But in studying agricultural policy design, no end of people came up to me when I was very grateful for this award. They said, you really must go to Australia and New Zealand. New Zealand did this fantastic job of transitioning away from subsidy. That's what's going to happen here. You really must go there. And I thought it just didn't make any sense to me. What I knew about New Zealand, their economy, the entire structure of their agri-food sector is so utterly different to ours. And so I chose to go and look at small, crowded islands with complicated food security relationships with their nearest neighbours, because that's fundamentally what we are. And so, cut a long story short, I'm very sorry that my report hasn't been published yet, and thanks to Alison for tolerating my tweets. What is agricultural policy really all about? And there's sort of probably three key things, and I'm not going to patronise you by asking you, because no doubt you will all agree that these three things are really important, and I will tell you why they aren't. First of all, the really key thing that agricultural policy is not about fighting for the £3 billion that we currently get invested into our industry. As I just sort of briefly touched on at the beginning, actually, and this was sort of a product of being in Hong Kong, talking to an agricultural professor there. They've recently reintroduced an agricultural policy into Hong Kong, having not had one since the 1980s, when they liberalised their borders in order to incentivise their financial services industry. Do you see the parallel? And didn't support agriculture, 86% land abandonment as a result. And it just was absolutely brought home to me that agricultural policy is not a pot of money. It's a function of much higher policy priorities. Now, they could have said that not supporting financial services was the wrong thing to do. They absolutely had to do that in order to keep their economy going. And I think we're going to be faced with a very similar situation. So in my mind, what we need, and the clarity that we need going forwards, is very much an understanding of what our trading position is going to be going forwards. And then equally what our approach to our environmental baseline will be. And then you can set some ideas around what you want your food security, your food nutritional profile to be. And only when you've got those three things in place can you work out what level of investment you need in order to sustain economically beneficial land use. So it's not about saying we need 3 billion. It might be about saying, actually, do you know what? We've got very free trade, we've got a high environmental baseline, and we've got a very liberal food policy. We need more. Okay? And I think, if we can progress that as an idea going forward, that's really important. The second thing I'd really like to challenge you on, and I feel really awful coming after the intensive livestock people, okay, and this is one of my other apologies. Agricultural policy is all about productivity. It's all about driving productivity. I think this is probably one of the things I'm most challenged by. Productivity, this idea of more from less. And that all the time we are looking to sort of take what we've got and kind of make it more efficient, make it work harder for us. And I think when you sort of step back to see what we've created in our agricultural sector and our food sector, it really is quite extraordinary. We took what was an entirely sustainable system where cattle ate grass and pigs and chickens ate waste, and we lived a very symbiotic relationship with the animals around us. And we said, you know what, we can do both of those things more efficiently. And actually, as we go through this system, we say we need to educate consumers about where their food comes from. Guess what? They find out where their food comes from and they don't like it. Okay? Now, I did a talk to pig producers. James, you were there. And I said, there's two topics of conversation for those pig producers, African swine flu and vegan activists breaking into their farms to take videos of what was going on inside the farms. And I said, well, why don't you live stream the content of your farms? Why don't you live stream from inside your pig processing units, your pig farms? And only two of the audience were prepared to do it. And I thought, how extraordinary that you're not proud of your farming system. And you may be proud of it, but proud in the way that you're actually fully allowed the consumer to engage in. Like something scripted is going on here. And this idea that efficiency being the sole driver of how we judge the effectiveness of our food systems, I think is really quite dangerous. Because in my opinion, the really inefficient thing about taking feed wheat and creating human edible protein out of it is this idea that it needs a beak and feathers. This first question, will synthetic alternative protein sources ever be more than a niche product? If we pursue efficiency, the logical conclusion is that converting it into animal protein to start with is pointless. It's inefficient. We can eat it directly. I'm sorry, I have to tell you, this all comes with an apology. The third thing, agricultural policy is all about fairness in supply chains. And this is probably one of the most sort of, biggest insights. I did a Marn and I was talking to horticultural producers. They were exporting peppers to Japan, and they were all really happy. But I've never met a horticultural producer who hasn't been complaining about supply chains. Every single horticultural producer you meet in this country is somehow complaining about supply chains, or working within a producer organisation so as to behave a bit like a monopoly, so you can kind of negotiate with the monopolies who you're talking to, or oligopolies if they're behaving in that particular way. And later on that evening I was Googling exactly what was going on here, and there is special things about Islamic finance, some of you may know that. There's also very special things about Islamic contract law, including that the two parties to a contract have to have complete knowledge about what the other party is going to get out of it in order for it to be enforceable in law. Look, when you have this expectation within our capitalist economy that it's all about extracting value and somebody else aggregates, disaggregates, adds value through a supply chain, and that's how everybody makes money, and then we talk about this idea of fairness and how do we compensate from it. So the bigger picture is really quite important here. What we create as a society and how that influences how our farm businesses are run is absolutely critical. And when we're talking about agricultural policy coming into it to address some of those things, I think, what are you doing? Are you solving the symptom of the problem, or are you solving the problem? And actually throwing money at the problem isn't necessarily going to get anywhere. Okay, so the future. 4 minutes on the future. This is just simply unfair, isn't it? What really worries me about the future, a couple of things. We absolutely need a hierarchy, and Angela, you spoke about this hierarchy, these need for clear targets and goals. I absolutely, critically agree. We've got at the moment this idea of the agriculture bill and the environment bill rising the environmental baseline. It's incredibly difficult as food business producers to know how you keep all of these different competing tensions happy. Is it more important that we're providing food at every price point, or that we do it in an environmentally benign way? And the critical juncture we've got at the moment, has been alluded to a couple of times already today, is the fact that carbon might become the driving indicator of all land use decisions that we get to make. And my caution with that is just be very careful about accepting that. One of the politicians I listened to the other day said we need a zero carbon. We want zero carbon, and I'm thinking you can't have zero carbon. We're all made out of carbon. It's a carbon cycle that we exist in. We have to accept we're part of the cycle. This is the issue. We get onto all sorts of interesting conversations at this point about human mentality and divorce from ecosystems and how we sort of piece that thing together. But I think the key thing from a UK context is that our food policy and our trade policy have always been the same thing, at least for the last 600 years. Okay, so we kind of accidentally founded the British Empire on trade in food because we wanted to feed our navy. Okay, and so that all happened decades. We're not going to unpick that stuff. We are part of a global food ecosystem, and I think that again is the role about, well, what are we really good at in this country? And carbon neutral agriculture, or carbon zero agriculture, net carbon, sinking carbon, very, very different from sustainable agriculture. And I think that is the key thing that we're going to have to look at going forward. Are we talking about sustainable production in this country? Or are we talking about land use which allows society to carry on living in the way that it's living? There's some really big issues there, and I think as an industry we do need to be prepared to say no. So, my two recommendations to you all, I'll probably finish, I don't know if it's going to take me 2 minutes to say this, anyway, the full picture. Really critical that we see the full picture when we talk about agricultural policy. This is not about fighting for the 3 billion. This is not about the content of the environmental land management scheme. I would really, really like it if as an industry we could make the case for investment, not based on a crisis, but on an opportunity. Okay? So not what is that trade deal going to do, the impact on our business, but actually looking at those trade deals to say this is where we need to be sending our sustainably produced commodity products from this country, or high-value products, where do they need to go to? We've got to see these things as an opportunity. Equally, we need logical targets. One of the things that I refer to in my report is that the European Union has for a very long time had a target of how well it's doing based on the affordability of protein in every second meal. Now, there are 2 ways you can achieve this. One is by improving people's well-being so that they're better off and they're more able to afford protein. The second one is by making protein very cheap. Okay, and you can see how this entire bias towards price and cheapness creates a complete bias in our food system which doesn't represent anything to do with the nutritional value. And I think if we're creating targets going forward for ourselves, we need to be very careful about how we frame those targets. And somebody's going to ask me afterwards what my favourite target would be for this, so I will save that for questions. The second thing that I would challenge you all to do, and actually it's really interesting, because it's on the front of the Farmers Guardian and the Nidderdale report, is focusing on profits, not productivity. Okay, the critical way that we will achieve success within our industry is not about producing more from less, it is about producing less from more. Okay, only then will we start to rebalance and actually create sustainable businesses that aren't dependent upon income support, that aren't dependent upon that cash injection. And equally, I think government needs to be incredibly clear that that balance of risk in a farm business operation is changing. Our supply chains need to adjust to the fact that we're not going to be on income support anymore, and the key beneficiary of money coming into our system will be the environment. Okay? Now, the environment does not support machinery, agricultural machinery supply chains. Some big changes coming on about how psychologically we need to approach that. I'm out of time, and nobody showed me a thingy, so. You showed me, oh, sorry, I wasn't looking. I'm done. Thank you very much.